You thought Lewis Hamilton was finished, didn't you? That Hungary was proof he's lost it, out in Q2, 12th on the grid, calling himself useless on global television. But what if that word wasn't a cry for help? What if it was the exact opposite? A sign that Lewis Hamilton still expects greatness, even when the car, the luck, and the timing aren't there? Because here's the twist. The data doesn't back the headlines. The team doesn't share the panic. And Fred Vasseur, Ferrari's team principal, has a very different message. He's not demotivated, he's just frustrated, and that's good. That changes everything. Because the real story? Hamilton isn't underperforming, he's overanalyzing. And that obsession with perfection? It's why he's a 7-time world champion in the first place. Let's dig into the numbers. In Q1 in Hungary, Hamilton beat Leclerc by 0.267 seconds. In Q2, Hamilton was eliminated by just 0.015 seconds. Not because he lacked pace, but because Ferrari was on the razor's edge of grip. Both cars nearly out. Leclerc found a fraction, Hamilton didn't. But here's the truth. Q2 first run, Hamilton, 1 minute 16.201 seconds. Leclerc, 1 minute 16.185 seconds. Q2 second run, Hamilton, 1 minute 15.702 seconds. Leclerc, 1 minute 15.455 seconds. The difference? 0.247 seconds, not 1.2 seconds. Not a disaster, just tight margins in a brutal field. And yet, Hamilton called himself useless. Why? Because to him, anything less than the front row is failure. Now zoom out across the season. Leclerc leads 10-4 in qualifying, but Hamilton's average time is just 0.214% slower than Charles. From Miami to Silverstone, Hamilton was 99.947% of Leclerc's pace, even ahead in Canada and Britain. In Spa's sprint qualifying, Hamilton matched Leclerc to the 1,000th through the first 2 sectors, until a new brake configuration caught him off. In Spa's Q1, he missed Q2 by 0.029 seconds. His lap was cleaner than Leclerc's, just over the white line. On paper, disaster. In reality, the performance was there. This isn't a story of decline. It's a story of unforgiving margins and a driver who won't lower his standards. But inside that helmet, the war is real. Lewis Hamilton isn't just racing the grid. He's racing himself. The perfectionist, the strategist, the leader trying to rebuild Ferrari from the inside. And when that mission hits a bump, when a single corner ruins a weekend, he takes the blame. He always has. Because Hamilton doesn't believe in bad luck. He believes in accountability, even when it hurts. And that's what separates him from almost everyone on the grid. Charles Leclerc can take pole and walk away. George Russell can throw jabs in the media. But Hamilton? He writes documents. He proposes solutions. He leads even when the headlines call him washed. That word, useless, it's not weakness. It's a standard. He's not at Ferrari to coast. He's there to win, to build, to leave something behind greater than himself. Now let's not sugarcoat it. Out in the second quarter in Hungary, Q1 exit in Spa, behind Leclerc in the standings by 42 points. It looks bad, but motorsport isn't a spreadsheet, and champions aren't built on averages. They're built in how they respond when it all goes wrong. That's what 2025 is testing. Not Hamilton's talent, but his resilience, and so far, he's not backing down. So the question becomes, is Lewis Hamilton actually underperforming? Or is he just playing by rules the rest of the grid doesn't even understand? When a driver this great says he's useless, you shouldn't laugh. You should listen. Because what's coming next could be legendary. You thought Lewis Hamilton was broken? That Hungary was the final proof he doesn't belong in red? A P-Tyson-Keto start, a P12 finish, a brutal radio message calling himself useless. But what if this wasn't the end? What if this was just the calm before the storm? Because after the worst weekend of his Ferrari career, Lewis didn't back down. He looked into the camera and said, "Don't count me out." And here's why that matters. When Lewis says he'll come back stronger, history says you should listen. Because behind the drama, the disappointment, and the headlines, there's a summer break. And behind that break, there's Zandvoort and a driver with nothing to lose. This could flip everything, not just for Lewis, but for Ferrari's entire season. Let's rewind. Saturday, qualifying. Hamilton gets knocked out in Q2, calls himself useless, suggests Ferrari should replace him. Sunday, race starts 12th, finishes 12th, no progress. Trapped in a DRS train, strategy, hard tire start, outcome, disaster. But here's the twist. There's a lot going on in the background that is not great, Hamilton told Sky Sports. Something we don't see, something he's carrying, and yet he still shows up, still races, still leads. Fred Vasseur admitted, "We lost everything in the second stint. Now we have to investigate why." Even Leclerc, who started on pole, collapsed in pace. This wasn't just a driver problem. This was a Ferrari problem. And what does that mean for the championship? Ferrari had a chance to strike. Leclerc was on pole. McLaren looked vulnerable. Russell was 15 seconds behind early on. This could have been a podium double. Instead, 1P4, 1P12, and more questions than answers. In a season where consistency is everything, Hungary was a punch to the gut for Ferrari and for Hamilton. But here's the part you can't measure on a stopwatch: how a champion reacts to failure. Because make no mistake, Hamilton's battle isn't just with the grid, it's with himself. The perfectionist in him, furious; the leader in him, disappointed; the competitor in him, hungry. He said it himself. "I'm not where I want to be yet, but the fight's not over." This isn't about 2,025 points anymore. It's about pride, legacy, redemption, and that's where things get emotional. Because Lewis Hamilton didn't come to Ferrari for podiums, he came for something bigger, to prove he could win outside Mercedes, to bring a championship back to Maranello, to do what Alonso and Vettel couldn't, and that kind of mission, it breaks most men, but not Lewis. He's been here before, down, written off, criticized, and every time, he comes back swinging. That's why he's the most successful F1 driver of all time. Not just because of raw speed, but because he never stops fighting. Now let's be honest, he's 40 years old. He's adapting to a new car, a new team, a new culture. He hasn't stood on the podium yet in red. The data's not pretty, the headlines are brutal, and yet, there's something brewing. Because under all this pressure, all this noise, there's still fire in his eyes. He's not done, not even close. But can he turn the tide? Can he silence the doubters one more time? So here's the question. Is Hungary the low point before the rise, or the beginning of the end? Will Hamilton return from the break reborn, ready to rewrite Ferrari's future? Or will the weight of Maranello crush even the greatest of all time?